Israeli airstrikes recently just took out a hospital in Gaza, and the situation is extremely critical. We're talking mass casualties, from 300 to 500 plus casualties. The numbers are not all in at the time of making this video. Nonetheless, whether it's 1 or 1,000, it's still terrible. Now, I want to go over why Israel is still peppering Gaza and what the issues are. And not only that, the United States has also been critical of Israel to sort of cool off and to allow for more humanitarian aid to at least work or enter Israel. Let's talk about the hospital real quick. At least 300 have been taken out in the Gaza hospital airstrike. I got to be careful what I say on here because YouTube censors all of this. Nonetheless, an Israeli airstrike took out 300 people at a Gaza City hospital on Tuesday, authorities in the Palestinian enclave said, and the United Nations said an Israeli strike also hit one of its schools being used as a shelter. A Gaza civil defense chief on Al Jazeera television said that more than 300 people were taken out at this hospital as well. Again, this number is still developing and only getting higher and higher. Now, the entire world is watching this conflict, and it's quite terrible on all sides. You have Hamas embedding themselves amongst the civilian population and willing to fire rockets behind children and hospitals, and Israel feels the need of, well, we have no choice. You attacked us first, so we're going to attack you. Again, this is not me taking either side. I'm just trying to show you the perspective on all sides. But let's go ahead and get into what Israel has been doing to try softening the attacks on Israel, or at least to try and mold or shape the perspective of their military. Israel has been really critical about allowing for mass humanitarian efforts in Gaza, not because they don't want civilians to get the treatment they deserve. They are afraid Hamas is taking the money, taking the supplies, fuel, electricity, anything to help Hamas to attack Israel. And here's a video on the Israeli Defense Forces Twitter where they sort of talk about this.
Have you ever wondered what happens to humanitarian aid in Gaza? UNICEF and the EU have spent over 2 million euros building water pipes all throughout Gaza. Hamas digs them up out of the ground and turns the material into rockets that they fire at Israel. Thousands of tons of construction materials meant for building homes went to Hamas's underground tunnel network that they have used to carry out attacks against Israel and now used to transport weapons around Gaza. And just this week, Hamas stole fuel and medical equipment from UNRWA that should have been distributed to Gazan civilians during the war.
Okay, so you get the point, but of course there's two sides of the spectrum. You have clear evidence, and it's well known Hamas, again, hides behind their own people. They have tunnel systems throughout all of Gaza, and the only way to get to these tunnel systems is, of course, with bunker busters, and that creates a lot of casualties. Infrastructures fall apart. That is what these bunker busters do. Nonetheless, it doesn't matter. On the other end of the spectrum, people say, well, who cares because you're taking out civilians? Now, one nation who does seem to care is actually the United States, and quite surprising, not surprising, they took a stand against Israel and they said you need to allow for humanitarian aid and efforts to continue within Gaza. Otherwise, we will not help you with this campaign. See here, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has reportedly told Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin tonight that they need to allow humanitarian aid into Gaza if they want to ensure continued international support for a ground operation into the Strip. Look at the verbiage again. They need. It's not, hey, can you? It's they need to. And the United States, for sure, is not supporting the fact that a lot of civilians are being taken out. The United States has said, we support you in defending yourself, but not doing these mass casualties attack. Again, I understand that this is warfare. This is combat, where if you have a high-value target, Hamas, hiding amongst all of these people, Israel has to make a choice. Do you attack them or not? Again, I'm not here to try and sway your opinion. I'm just trying, again, to give you both sides of the story. Something else to consider, even as Israel lets off on attacks, they still get attacked back. Right here in the city of Sderot, which has been totally evacuated, a rocket launched from the Gaza Strip has struck the almost totally evacuated city of Sderot in southern Israel, causing damage to a building and a car. Now, Israel has anticipated some sort of retaliation or more attacks because they have actually evacuated cities like Sderot with over 30,000 people, and all of the neighboring border towns and cities throughout the Gaza Strip region and also up north to Lebanon. Now, with this hospital attack, again, this is my prediction and my opinion. You guys can leave yours in the comments. I think this is going to be the fuel in the fire for Iran and other proxy units to get motivated to start doing something as far as military action about all of this. Now, again, still waiting on the rest of the world's response, but actions like this, whether or not it was a mistake, it doesn't matter. You took out a hospital. Imagine if the United States did this with the amount of casualties that is being projected right now, the U.S. military and the United States would be under massive hot water. So I'm trying again to sort of explain both sides and not be too biased. I know as humans we have our natural biases, but again here it's like you just took out a hospital, regardless if like a high value target is in it, you just took out 300 to 500 other people. Something else I have to mention, Iran has been making extremely specific threats and directed at Israel and the U.S. military. I mean, the U.S. military is about to be stuck in the middle of this thing, and I'm trying to think like, what is this strike carrier group about to do? What are all these soldiers about to do? Because Iran is saying, look, we are ready to fight. You can see here, according to the Iranian foreign minister, there could be a preemptive measures taken by the Axis of Resistance against Israel in the coming hours. The Axis of Resistance includes Iran, Syria, and Hezbollah, as well as any anti-Western or anti-Israeli militia groups across the Middle East. I've been saying this over and over. The longer Israel prolongs this conflict, the longer Hamas can withstand the siege and withstand this conflict, it's going to get bad. So this is currently what's happening. You have attacks from Gaza, attacks from Israel. The United States is buffering up or beefing up their defenses in the Middle East. I don't know if this is going to be a World War III, but what I do know is this is what's happening today and now. Hospitals are being taken out. You have a massive humanitarian crisis within Gaza. You have Egypt not allowing for resources to necessarily get into Gaza for fear that civilians will pour into their country. You have the United States telling Israel to chill out, but Israel is saying you give them humanitarian stuff and they use it on us. And at the end of the day, all we could pray for and hope is, of course, peace. But if I'm being honest with you, if you cover all these stories and look into all the underground sources and the mainstream sources, things are only getting worse and worse, especially with attacks on these soft targets. Again, I don't think Israel did this on purpose. And again, it doesn't matter whether if it's a mistake or on purpose. It's just fueling the fire of this conflict. And Israel knows this, and they know the implications of combat. This has happened throughout all the centuries of war, throughout all of human life. That is why war and conflict is a terrible thing. How much motivation, fuel, and fire will this help for the proxy units in Iran to finally instigate some sort of intervention into Israel? Because Iran has, again, already made the threats that they want in on this conflict. And if Israel keeps continuing their siege and whatnot, it doesn't matter. Iran wants to get involved. Now, again, this does include Syria, Iran, Hezbollah, and other factions who are loyal to anything anti-West. So, of course, also the United States. So we'll see what happens. Either way, this is very terrifying and terrible for the people of Gaza. Again, regardless of what side you are on, I think everyone can agree that the loss of a civilian life who has nothing to do with any of this is terrible. But unfortunately, again, you have Hamas who hides behind their own people. You have Israel who says, well, they're hiding behind their own people and they're still attacking us. We gotta do something about it. It's very terrible on all sides, and we can only wish and pray again this all ends. But nonetheless, look out for the intervention because, in my opinion, I think this is the fuel that was needed for the rest of these proxy units to get in on this conflict because the casualty count is getting higher and higher, and it's a very bad thing for Israel if more parties get involved.